Good morning to all and welcome to the session. Is it on? Audio and video? Yes. Before we go to the actual session, let us have a look at today's quote. I can is 100 times more important than IQ. You all know the two letters IQ. What do the letters stand for? Intelligence quotient. So this is the feeling, the attitude. I can is 100 times more important than IQ. A very useful quote. And today's editorial, coming to the editorial, today's editorial is all about crisis in Sri Lanka. Not that important, but still, I thought a few words are there to learn. That way it is important. Besides the editorial analysis, today you're going to work on errors, misspelled words, a word swap, para jumble, and as usual, editorial vocabulary. Now let us go to editorial vocabulary. The very first word, crisis, an easy one. A time of intense difficulty or danger or problem. When you experience a lot of problems or difficulties or hardships or danger, you should think of the word crisis. Resolve, we have got many a time. Settle or find a solution to a problem or contentious matter. Resolve the issue means what? Sort out, find a solution. Blackout, everyday English we say power cut, to become enveloped in darkness. Blackout, one meaning. Another meaning, blackout means to become unconscious. Precipitate, it goes with chemistry, but here in this context, precipitate a situation, cause to happen suddenly, unexpectedly, or prematurely. Something or someone causes an incident or an event to happen all of a sudden, prematurely, then we use the word. The situation has been precipitated. Crisis, lack of time, I could not. Crisis is a noun, I'll write now. Resolve is a verb, it's a regular verb. Blackout, obviously a noun. Precipitate, a regular verb. Devolution, again, obviously it's a noun. Descend to a lower or worse state. In this context, worse, from a higher level to a lower level. Assume, it's a verb, assumption, noun form. But assume has two different meanings. One meaning, usually we say don't assume things, means what? To think that something is true without any proof. But in this context, assume office means what? Take or begin to have power or responsibility. Defer, we have got many a time in the recent past. Deferment, noun form. The action or fact of putting something off to a later time, or simply postponement. Shed is a verb, it could be a noun, but in this context, it is a verb. Shedding. Usually, it goes with snakes and trees. Snakes shed the skin, and trees shed the leaves. The process of losing a covering, thrash out. It has two different meanings. One meaning of thrash out. Thrash means to beat someone black and blue. But here, thrash out means to talk about something in order to make a decision or find a solution, more find a solution. Impact, we come across quite often. The action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another. The impact of something. A refugee, a person who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, prejudice, or natural disaster. One person goes from that particular his country or her country to another country. Then we ask, is looking for shelter. Then you have to recollect the word asylum. Asylum means what? Two different meanings. One is political shelter, goes with refugees. The other one, a place for lunatics. Here, hair also, you're right, fur. Pogrom, this is a new word we have got for the first time. What does it mean? An organized massacre of helpless people. Actually, it goes with Jewish people, but generally helpless people. Clandestine, an important word. Clandestinely, adverb. Here, impact, noun. Refugee, noun. This is also a noun. Here, it is an adverb, but generally we use it as an adjective. Clandestine operations in a secretive or illicit way. More than illicit, I would rather better word is secretive. Clandestine means secretive. Trafficking, noun. Human trafficking, child trafficking. Deal or trade in something illegal. Whip up, an important phrasal verb. This is a phrasal verb. Means what? Deliberately excite or provoke someone. Incite someone. Now let us go to the editorial, very short editorial, easy to comprehend, not at all complicated. Crisis in Sri Lanka. You can easily make out a problem in Sri Lanka. What is the main idea? Because there's a problem in Sri Lanka, the main idea of the editorial, India should help Sri Lanka during the crisis and also resolve some of the bilateral issues. The main idea has two dimensions. One dimension, because a neighbor, Sri Lanka, is in crisis, India should help Sri Lanka. First dimension. The second dimension, at the same time, India should also resolve some of the bilateral issues. Resolve, find a solution for some of the bilateral issues. Simple English, easy to understand. But here you have to recollect the function of should. Should is used either to advise or suggest someone, one function. It is also used to express a possibility, but the chances are less. Sri Lanka, now obviously it has to talk about the crisis. What are the reasons behind and what has pushed the country into crisis? Sri Lanka is facing an economic crisis, not political, not social, not cultural, economic crisis. Sri Lanka is facing an economic crisis with long queues in front of petrol stations, steep rise in prices of essential commodities, and frequent blackouts. So, crisis because of three problems. One, perhaps shortage of petrol, long queues in front of petrol stations. Second, steep rise, sharp rise in prices of essential commodities. And the third factor to push the country into crisis, frequent blackouts, power cuts. Here, resolve means to find a solution, blackout to become enveloped in darkness. You can also think of power cuts. And one more meaning of blackout, to become unconscious. Although the COVID 19 pandemic precipitated a crisis of trade imbalance, precipitated, an important word, caused to happen suddenly, unexpectedly, or prematurely. We all know many countries got badly affected because of COVID 19. So, although the COVID 19 pandemic precipitated a crisis of trade imbalance, the fundamentals of the Sri Lankan economy have always had serious issues. One of the reasons for crisis, besides those three factors, the impact of the pandemic. Although the COVID 19 pandemic precipitated, made it happen, a crisis of trade imbalance, the fundamentals of the Sri Lankan economy have always had serious issues. Here, one important word, fundamentals. There's something called redundancy. This is important from the exam point of view. Some people say basic fundamentals. Basics or fundamentals, don't use both the words. That is not correct. Debt, both domestic and foreign, has been a major problem. Now, it talks about crisis in Sri Lanka, and this crisis is economic crisis. Obviously, then it has to mention the debt. Here, the letter B is silent. Debt, both domestic and foreign, has been a major problem. Of all these problems, the major problem, debt. Even in February 2020, hardly a few months after Gotabaya Rajapaksa assumed office as president, His elder brother and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, during his visit to New Delhi, wanted India to reschedule the loan. Wanted India to reschedule the loan. So he talks about asking the neighbor, the government, Sri Lankan government, the Prime Minister, during his visit, Mahinda Rajapaksa asking or wanted India to reschedule the loan. That means what? They wanted more time. Over the last 3 months, based on that, over the last 3 months, India has provided assistance of $2.4 billion, including a $500 million loan deferment and $1 billion credit line to enable the supply of essential commodities. This sentence basically talks about the help, financial help from India. Over the last 3 months, over the last 3 months, as an important phrase, India has provided assistance of, it talks about the data, facts, $2.4 billion, including a $500 million loan deferment. Defer means postpone, already have got the word many a time. And 1 billion credit line to enable the supply of essential commodities. Apart from approaching Beijing, Colombo has also sought help from the International Monetary Fund (IMF), shedding its earlier reservation of taking help from the agency. Be- Sri Lanka has approached India one thing. Apart from, not only that, besides, in addition to, apart from approaching Beijing, Colombo has also sought from the International Monetary Fund (IMF), shedding its earlier reservation or hesitation of taking help from the agency. Shed means what? Shed means to lose a covering. Usually it goes with snakes and trees, but it also goes with a country or persons. Shed your hesitation, shed your fears, shed your apprehensions. Typical combinations. As soon as the shortage of certain essential commodities ends, which the government expects before the start of the Sinhala Tamil New Year, which falls in the middle of April, steps should be taken for economic recovery. This talks about the solution. As soon as the shortage of certain essential commodities ends, right now there's a shortage, as soon as that ends, which the government expects before the start of the Sinhala Tamil New Year, which falls in the middle of April, steps should be taken for economic recovery, obviously. Compulsions of electoral politics should not come in the way of tough measures such as restructuring the administration of concessions and subsidies. Again, this talks about the solution. When it comes to economic recovery, they should not keep in mind the electoral politics. Compulsions of electoral politics should not come in the way, an important expression. That means they should not take into consideration electoral politics of tough measures such as restructuring the administration of concessions and subsidies. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa should also use a scheduled meeting with the Tamil political leadership to create a roadmap on the issue of political devolution and economic development of the war affected northern and eastern provinces among the areas badly hit by the current crisis. These are the areas badly hit by the current crisis, and based on this, it talks about the leaders or the government should also use a scheduled meeting with the Tamil political leadership. The northern part always is a problem. Tamil political leadership to create a roadmap on the issue of political devolution. There's one important word: devolution, descent to a lower or worse state, from a higher level to a lower level. Perhaps Tamil Nadu has already started feeling the impact of the crisis. Something happens in Sri Lanka immediately, not always. You may see the impact in the state of Tamil Nadu. It talks about that. Perhaps Tamil Nadu has already started feeling the impact of the crisis. Impact means what? The action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another. With the reported arrival of 16 persons from Sri Lanka, including 6 women and 7 children, through illegal means. When do they do that? If at all there's a problem, a crisis in a particular country, they try to flee from that country. Flee means run away, and they become refugees. Now it talks about a situation where 16 persons from Sri Lanka entered the state of Tamil Nadu illegally. That means there is a crisis, and Tamil Nadu has already started feeling the impact of that. Tamil Nadu was home to nearly 3 lakh refugees after the anti-Tamil pogrom of 1983. This is an important word. Means what? An organized massacre of helpless people of 1983. And refugee, a person who has been forced to leave a particular country because of persecution, war, or natural disaster. So this talks about what happened way back in 1983, and because of that, nearly 3 lakh refugees are there in the state of Tamil Nadu. Regardless of the motive of those who have reached Tamil Nadu clandestinely, means secretly, the authorities both in India and Sri Lanka should ensure that the present crisis is not used to step up smuggling activities and trafficking or whip up emotions in both countries. Now, what is happening? Slowly, the number may go up. Refugees, the problem of refugees, and regardless of the motive of those who have reached Tamil Nadu clandestinely, they entered illegally, not legally. So, clandestinely means what? In a secretive manner. Now, based on this, authorities should be alert, and the authorities both in India and Sri Lanka should ensure that the present crisis, whenever there is a crisis, some people try to take advantage. They should see that the present crisis is not used to step up smuggling activities, one thing, and trafficking. Trafficking means what? Deal or trade in something illegal. A typical combination human trafficking or whip up, deliberately excite or provoke or incite someone, whip up emotions in both countries, which is again very dangerous. How does the editorial end? On the contrary, the crisis should be used as an opportunity for New Delhi and Colombo to thrash out a solution. Thrash means beat someone severely, but thrash out as a phrasal verb to talk about something in order to make a decision or find a solution. Thrash out a solution to the Park Bay fisheries dispute, a long standing irritant in bilateral ties. I have done a few editorials on this Park Bay fisheries dispute. So that's all about this editorial, very short editorial, a few important words. Now let us go to questions based on the editorial comprehension point of view. What is this editorial about? Should not be that difficult to write about this editorial. What has always had serious issues? An important sentence pattern. What has always had serious issues? Which tense is that? Present perfect tense. Who wanted India to reschedule the loan? Easy to answer. What should not come in the way of tough measures? A particular factor should not come in the way of tough measures. Again, easy to answer based on navigation skills. In the context of the editorial, how should the crisis be used? In the context of the editorial, how should the crisis be used? Now let us go to very good. I think I appreciate that, Nagamani. You have written about the editorial. That's really good. Now, first you listen to me. I have brought 20 questions and not very difficult today's question because tomorrow you have the exam, day after tomorrow. I wanted it to be moderate. So, more or less, you can expect the same standards or perhaps a little higher. The first five questions deal with error location. Please read each sentence and try to spot the error. Each day, over 4,100 people lose their lives to it, and close to 28,000 people fall ill to this preventable and curable disease. Not exactly. Nagaraju says C, but what is wrong with C? Yes, C is right. Pavani also says C, but what is wrong with C? Each day, over 4,100 people lose their lives to it. Here you can use a plural form. Yesterday we had a question, helicopters, their life. There you cannot use a plural form. Here you can use to it, and close to 28,000 people fall ill. Fall ill to is not correct. Fall ill with this preventable and curable disease. The correct preposition after fall ill with what? With some disease. Fall prey, you have to use a preposition to. But here, fall ill. To is not correct. It should be fall ill with this preventable and curable disease. So, what is this preposition? What is this based on? Preposition, appropriate preposition. Fall prey to, that is one combination. Fall prey to is correct. But fall ill with something. Fall ill with. Some of the engineering companies can also turn up to be dark horses. Some of the engineering companies can also turn up to be dark horses. Please, to see. Some of the engineering companies can also turn up. Turn up is not correct. Turn up, show up. They mean what? Appear. But here we have to use a phrasal verb, turn out, develop into. What is the appropriate phrasal verb? Turn out. Some of the engineering companies can also turn out to be dark horses. Very good. I appreciate that. Turn up is not correct. It should be turn out. It has turned out to be means what? Initially they did not expect. Slowly it became something positive. Dark horses, an important idiomatic expression. Dark horse means what? Someone, we don't expect someone to win the elections. Then we use the idiomatic expression dark horse. A typical example in the US, Donald Trump in the past. Now let us go to question number 3. Good morning. Who is this? Satish Shankar. Welcome to the platform. Try to get enriched. Please go to question number 3. If you do not link your PAN to your Aadhaar, your PAN will become inoperative on April 1st, 2022, unless the government does not decide to extend the deadline. This should not be difficult. We have got many a time. Regular classes also, I tell students, in many competitive exams they've given based on one particular word. One C, yes. Here we have a negative word. Unless, whenever you have a negative word, in the same clause, you cannot use one more negative expression. If you do that, it is known as double negative. Double negatives are not acceptable in English. Unless it's a negative word, then we cannot use one more negative expression. Unless the government decides, you have to say, unless the government decides to extend the deadline, you cannot use in the same clause two negative expressions. If at all you do that, that is known as double negative, not acceptable. Please go to question number 4. Exactly. Question is about double negative. The finance bill is scheduled to be taken up in the lower house for discussion and consideration on Thursday. Yes, it is nothing but redundancy. The finance bill is scheduled to be taken up in the lower house for discussion and consideration on Thursday. Where is the error? The finance bill subject is scheduled to be taken up, passive voice, in the lower house, standard phrase, for what? For discussion and consideration on Thursday. Very good, I appreciate. So many students. Answer is the fifth option, no error. That's really highly appreciable. No problem with the sentence, grammatically, contextually. I'm glad to see that so many students have chosen no error. Really good. Question number 5. We incorporated the relevant suggestions and a final proposal will soon be put for final consideration and approval of the cabinet. A lengthy sentence, but if you read meticulously, you will be able to spot the error. Question number 5. Not question number 5, not C. No, 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 no. Answer my question. Do you find the time phrase here? You don't find the time phrase. When you don't find the time phrase, obviously you have to use present perfect, not past. Based on that, there's an error in the very first part. We have incorporated. We have incorporated the relevant suggestions and a final proposal will soon be put for final consideration and approval of the cabinet. We have incorporated. We should use present perfect, not past. Now listen to me. Here we have 5 questions. All the 5 questions related to misspelt word. One particular word misspelt, you have to find out that particular word. There are 4 words in red. A, B, C, D. Which word is misspelt? If all the words are correct spelling wise, you have to choose. All words are correct. 4 out of 5 is good. Very good, Bharat. Several AAP MLAs who emerged as giant killers by defeating political stalwarts, means those who are very powerful in a particular field, seniors of rival parties in the Punjab Assembly polls, did not find a place in the Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann's cabinet. Here, what is the spelling? It is not GAINT, it's a common error. It is GIANT. Exactly. Huge, mammoth, colossus. Go to question number 2. Based on current market prices, the oil marketing companies are currently incurring a revenue loss of around 25 US dollars over rupees 1,900 per barrel and US dollars 24 per barrel on sale of petrol and diesel, respectively. This is also an yes. What is the correct spelling of diesel? Is it DI or DE? DIESEL, diesel, not DEI. Here, everything looks easy. Under pressure, there's a possibility to get confused. Digital trial may unravel crash mystery. The March 21st, 2022 crash of China Eastern Airlines MU 5735 killed all 132 on board. There are two sentences, but related. Digital trial may unravel, disclose, or reveal crash mystery. Yes, again, who is this time? A lot of students. Digital trial goes with a quote, but here it is leaving something behind. Then what is the correct spelling of that particular word? TRAIL, trail, not trial, trail. Exactly. Good, the very first word. Then you don't have to go to remaining, you don't have to read the sentence. You know for sure that word is not correct. Choose that word and go to the next question. India's annual goods exports crossed the 400 billion mark for the first time ever. The government announced on Wednesday, buoyed by an increase in shipments of merchandise. Which word is not correct or misspelt? Which word is misspelt? Yes, Surya, this time. It is not BOU, it should be BUO. BUOYED. Then it is correct. Very good, within no time. Again, I would like to tell you guys here, you are not under pressure. These may look a little easy, but actual exam under pressure, the same words, you may under tension, under pressure, there's a possibility. Maintain the same spirit, same confidence, and look at the words and sentences meticulously. You can spot the error within no time. Wings India 2022, the next edition of the bienniel conference and exhibition series on civil aviation, is all set to get underway on March 24. So, what is the spelling of biennial? It is not E here, it should be A. Biennial. That's right. Very good. I'm sure many students must have got all the five correct. Looks like you guys are very good at spellings. Now let us go to a para jumble. Not difficult from today's the Hindu paper. There are six parts. You should be able to get the correct order. Not at all, not that difficult. Moderate, I would say. All the five correct. Yes, expected. Exactly. Jivan, all the five correct. Good. And Ganesh also. Sharanu. Now, parajumble, it has, cannot be the first one. A question, sometimes yes, hold that one. In its election campaign, here there's a pronoun, it offered pronoun, and you cannot start a sentence with a conjunction. It cannot be the first one. What is the first one over here? E is the first one. The Aam Aadmi Party's spectacular win in the recent Punjab Assembly polls shows what? It has successfully crafted a new dynamic in state politics. State politics, Punjab, obviously. It should be EA1 pair. What is the third one? Easy. In its election campaign, AAP exhorted the voters to give the party a chance and allow it to replicate the Delhi model of governance where it is in power. That means what? CF1 pair. It offered, means the party, it offered several freebies against the backdrop of the state's staggering debt of around 3.4 lakh crore. Then you have D. And the last one, it's an element of doubt, a question. Will AAP deliver on its promises? So obviously, DB, one pair. Promises, and will it be able to deliver? I hope you guys got it right. Easy one, that's what I said. Word swap, 5 questions. The disaster response and fire services retrieved into service 8 fire tenders and teams and pressed the charred bodies from the first floor to the single entry exit spiral staircase of the godown. You have 4 words either properly placed or you have to swap, exchange 2 words or all the 4 sometimes. That's very good. The disaster response and fire services into service, retrieved into service. Retrieve means to take out something. Here we cannot use the word retrieve, it should be pressed into. Pressed into service, a standard expression. 8 fire tenders and teams and retrieved the charred bodies, took out the charred bodies. So here we have to swap AC. The remaining 2 words, no problem. Not AD, AC. No, no, no. Pressed into service and retrieved the charred bodies. AC. I have underlined, I will underline the words to be swapped. The preparedness of the Disaster Management DM Act 2005 will not be invoked in the country after March 31st due to the overall improvement in the COVID-19 situation and the provisions of the government in dealing with the pandemic. To be burnt, charred means to be burnt, charred to death. Someone is burnt, then we use the term charred to death. The preparedness of the Disaster Management DM Act 2005. Preparedness of the Act is not correct. The provisions of the Act, obviously. The provisions of the Disaster Management DM Act 2005 will not be invoked in the country after March 31st due to the overall improvement in the COVID-19 situation and the preparedness of the government in dealing with the pandemic. So here we have to use AD. Exactly. Policymakers may have to choose a critical exercise regarding who bears the burden of higher prices of petroleum products in India among consumers and industrial users, oil marketing companies, and the government. This is also not that difficult, but under pressure, they may turn out to be tough questions. Usually, turnout has a positive connotation. Policymakers may have to choose, no. May have to choose would have been correct. May have to exercise a critical choice regarding who bears the burden of higher prices of petroleum products. It is A, B. They have to exercise a critical choice. A, B is the answer. Poland on Wednesday said it had dismissed 45 Russian diplomats for espionage, an allegation immediately expelled as baseless by Russia's ambassador to Poland. This is also an easy one, not that difficult. Question number 4. Understand the context, then it becomes very easy to answer. Here there is a clue. 45 Russian diplomats. Dismiss the diplomats or expel. In this context, we have to use the word expel. Poland on Wednesday said it had expelled 45 Russian diplomats. And Russia, what is the response of Russia? Russia immediately expelled is not correct, dismissed as baseless by Russia's ambassador to Poland. That means what? A, D is the answer. Yes. The Taliban shut girls' secondary schools in Afghanistan. Spying, yes, that's right. The Taliban shut girls' secondary schools in Afghanistan. Two ordered, use your grammar knowledge, sparking heartbreak and confusion over the sudden policy reversal. So here we have to use the Taliban ordered girls' secondary schools in Afghanistan to shut. It should be A, B. Yes. To send out, expel means to send out, expelled, sent out. In that context, Poland sending Russian diplomats out of Poland, out of that country. The last slide, editorial vocabulary. Try to answer quickly. Resolve, it is a verb. Find a solution. All the 5, 15 out of 20. Good enough. I would like to know the scores. Someone says 15 out of 20, that is good enough. Precipitate, cause to happen. There is also a regular verb. 19 out of 20. That's very good. Nagamani says 19 out of 20. That's Srinivas also 19 out of 20. That's good. Srinivas. There's a reason, Prasad. The reason being, tomorrow you have the exam. Imagine I bring a very tough paper. It may make a negative impact on the mindset. I didn't want to take any chances. One reason. Second reason, imagine something like this, not very easy. It shows your standards, moderate. Then a positive attitude. Tomorrow, the mindset will be positive. That helps in the exam. That is the only reason, no other reason. And again, I would like to reiterate many of these questions today, they may look very easy because you're not under pressure. But same questions in the exam, they may confuse. There's every possibility. So don't take anything for granted. Precipitate, have you answered? That's good. Who is this? Kavita 16 and someone says SVS 14. Good. Devolution means what? Descent to a lower state or become worse. Noun A. And deferment, noun, postponement E. Shedding, shed is a verb, it could be a noun. Exactly. Your attitude, your mindset, very important. The process of losing, assume it's a verb, has two different meanings. In this context, to get power, begin to have power. Trash out, only trash to beat someone black and blue, but here trash out, phrasal verb. What does it mean? Talk about something to find a solution. Pogrom, it's a new word completely. It's a noun. What does it mean? Organized massacre of helpless people. As I said, it goes with Jewish people, but helpless people. Clandestinely, adverb, clandestine, adjective. In a secretive way. Trafficking, human trafficking, a typical combination. Noun, what are you left with? Trade in something that is illegal or illicit. That's all for today. I wish you all the best. And tomorrow and day after, no sessions because a lot of students have to take the exam, RBA assistant. I wish all those students all the best to do well. Do remember, while taking the exam, how to what extent you're composed, you're balanced, that matters a lot. Read the sentences meticulously, have a positive attitude throughout the session, and be composed, be balanced. And remember, if it is tough for you, it is tough for everyone. Give your best. All the best to do well. Thank you very much.